Millionaire finds woman holding son to stay warm on Christmas Eve. Day as he approached, he was shocked. The rain hammered against the windshield as Olivia Campbell's car swerved through Seattle's dark streets. Her hands trembled on the steering wheel, knuckles white with tension. In the rearview mirror, the headlights of her pursuers flickered like predatory eyes through the downpour. Mummy Matthew's small voice came from the back seat, heavy with sleep. His silver necklace, Donald's gift for his 3rd birthday just weeks ago, caught the dim light. "It's okay, sweetheart," Olivia whispered, forcing steadiness into her voice. "Everything's going to be okay," but her eyes darted between the road ahead and the rearview mirror, where 2 black SUVs kept pace, growing closer with each passing moment. She knew what they wanted: revenge against Donald for exposing Steele's corruption. Her husband's evidence had brought down an empire, but now that empire's remnants were hunting his family, Donald was in Boston, unreachable, unaware that his world was about to shatter. The church spire appeared through the rain like a beacon. Olivia had made her decision the moment she'd intercepted the threat. Her son's life was worth any sacrifice. She pulled into the parking lot, tires screeching on wet pavement. "Matthew, listen to me." She turned to face her son, memorizing his features one last time. "Mummy needs you to be very brave." Inside the church, David sorted through donation boxes when the doors burst open. A woman rushed in, soaked and desperate, carrying a small boy. "Please," she begged, "you have to help him. They can't find him." David saw the terror in her eyes, the fierce love as she kissed her son's forehead. She pressed a silver necklace into David's hands. "Tell him it's from his father. Keep him safe, please." The boy clung to his mother, confused and frightened. "Mummy." "I love you, Matthew," Olivia whispered, her voice breaking. "More than anything in this world." She ran back into the storm, leaving her heart behind. Through the church windows, David watched her car speed away, followed by 2 dark vehicles. Minutes later, sirens wailed in the distance. The boy stood beside him, tears mixing with raindrops on his cheeks, clutching the silver necklace that would become his only link to a past about to be buried in tragedy. David looked down at him, feeling the weight of Olivia's desperate trust. "I promise," he whispered, though she couldn't hear him anymore. "I'll keep him safe." 7 years had passed since that rainy night, each one etching deeper lines into Donald Campbell's face. The Seattle skyline sprawled before him through the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office, a testament to his success and a monument to his loneliness. The empire he'd built from grief and determination rose 40 stories into the clouds, but none of it could fill the void left by his family's loss. Donald's fingers traced the edge of the silver picture frame on his desk, the last family photo taken on Matthew's 3rd birthday. Olivia's smile radiated warmth, while Matthew beamed at the camera, proudly wearing his new silver necklace. It was the same necklace that had vanished along with their bodies after the accident. The police had said the river swept them away, leaving Donald with nothing but memories and questions that haunted his sleepless nights. Mrs. Harper's quiet knock interrupted his reverie. "Mr. Campbell, the board meeting starts in 10 minutes." Her expression softened slightly as she noticed the photograph in his hands. She'd been with the family since before Matthew's birth, and her loyalty had never wavered, even when grief transformed Donald into a shadow of his former self. "Thank you, Mrs. Harper," he replied, his voice carrying the weight of exhaustion. The holiday season always hit him hardest. Christmas decorations throughout the city only served to remind him of Olivia's joy in decorating their home, of Matthew's excitement on Christmas morning. Now his mansion stood stark and unadorned, a reflection of the emptiness within. In the boardroom, Donald commanded attention with the authority of a man who'd turned pain into power. Under his leadership, Campbell Industries had become a force in Seattle's business world. His reputation for ruthless efficiency and unwavering integrity had earned him respect and fear in equal measure. Few knew that his drive stemmed from a desperate need to stay busy, to exhaust himself enough that memories couldn't haunt his dreams. After the meeting, he found himself driving aimlessly through the city streets, a habit he'd developed over the years. The rain, constant companion in Seattle, matched his mood. He passed happy families hurrying home, carrying Christmas presents and sharing umbrellas. Each scene was a knife twist of remembrance. His phone buzzed another invitation to a holiday charity gala. Donald had become a significant donor to children's causes, though he never attended the events themselves. The thought of seeing happy families, of watching children Matthew's age growing up, was more than he could bear. Instead, he wrote checks and buried himself in work, letting Mrs. Harper handle the social obligations that came with his position. Back at his mansion, Donald walked the silent halls. The house was immaculate thanks to Mrs. Harper's supervision, but it felt more like a museum than a home. Furniture remained exactly where Olivia had placed it, Matthew's room preserved behind a locked door he hadn't opened in years. Even the garden, once Olivia's pride and joy, now grew according to strict guidelines that maintained its appearance while stripping away its soul. In his study, Donald poured himself a drink and settled into the leather chair that had witnessed countless lonely nights. Reports from Campbell Industries waited for his review, but his eyes kept drifting to the wall of photos, a timeline of happiness that ended abruptly 7 years ago. Sometimes in moments like these, he could almost hear Matthew's laughter echoing through the halls, could almost smell Olivia's favorite perfume. The investigation into their deaths had gone cold years ago, but Donald had never stopped searching. Private investigators across the country kept looking for any trace of Matthew, following even the faintest leads. Deep down, he knew it was futile, but the alternative, accepting that they were truly gone, felt like losing them all over again. Mrs. Harper appeared with his evening meal, worry evident in her stern features. "You should eat something, Mr. Campbell," she said, her tone carrying the familiar mix of respect and maternal concern. Donald nodded, though they both knew the food would go largely untouched, like so many meals before it. As another day drew to a close, Donald Campbell, the man who had everything and nothing, stood at his window watching the city lights blur through the rain. Success, wealth, power, all of it meaningless without the family he'd lost. The holidays approached like a gathering storm, bringing with them memories he couldn't escape and a loneliness he couldn't fill. Little did he know that fate was about to intervene, that a chance encounter on a rainy Christmas Eve would shatter his carefully constructed walls and force him to confront both his past and his future. The empire he'd built from pain was about to face its greatest test, and the truth he'd been searching for was closer than he could have imagined. Sandra Walker closed her classroom door, the sound of children's laughter fading as the last of her second-grade students headed home for Christmas break. She lingered at her desk, surrounded by colorful artwork and handmade cards from her students. Teaching had become her salvation, a way to channel her own pain into something meaningful after that fateful night in the emergency room 7 years ago. The memory still haunted her. The rain-soaked woman rushed into the ER, critical from a car accident. Sandra had been the nurse on duty, her hands steady as they worked to save Olivia Campbell's life. In those final moments, Olivia had grabbed Sandra's hand, her eyes wild with desperation. "My son," she'd whispered. "Please. Find Matthew." Those were her last words, words that would change Sandra's life forever. She pulled Logan's latest drawing from her desk, a family portrait showing him with Sandra, their stick figures holding hands under a bright sun. The picture brought both joy and an ache to her heart. She'd found Logan at the Portland Children's Home 2 years after that night, a quiet 3-year-old with haunted eyes and a silver necklace he refused to remove. Something about him had called to her, perhaps the same desperate need for connection that she felt herself. Miss Sandra, Logan's voice came from the doorway. He stood there in his winter coat, backpack clutched to his chest. "Are you ready to go home?" Sandra smiled, pushing away the memories. "Of course, sweetheart. Let me just grab my things." She watched as he adjusted the silver necklace, his most prized possession, though he didn't know its true significance. Sometimes she caught him tracing the engraved initials, MJC, as if trying to decode a mystery even he didn't understand. Their small apartment was modest but warm, filled with Logan's artwork and books. Sandra had created a home here, different from her previous life as an ER nurse. The transition hadn't been easy. Nightmares of that rainy night still woke her, and the guilt of not being able to save Olivia weighed heavily. But Logan had given her life new purpose. As she prepared dinner, Sandra watched Logan work on his homework at the kitchen table. He was a bright child, sensitive and kind, with an innate ability to sense others' pain. How many times had he crawled into her lap after she woke from nightmares, offering silent comfort? He might not be her biological son, but their bond went deeper than blood. Miss Sandra, Logan looked up from his math homework. "Can we put up Christmas lights this year?" "Of course we can," she replied, though her budget was tight. Teaching didn't pay much, and the medical bills from her father's recent illness had depleted her savings, but she'd find a way. She always did when it came to Logan's happiness. Later that night, after tucking Logan into bed, Sandra sat at her small desk reviewing the adoption papers she kept in a locked drawer. The official documents told one story: a routine adoption of an abandoned child. But Sandra knew there was more. The silver necklace, the timing of his abandonment, the desperate plea of a dying mother, all pieces of a puzzle she hadn't dared to fully assemble. She'd done some research over the years, careful to keep her investigation private. The car accident that claimed Olivia Campbell's life had made headlines, both for its tragic nature and the mystery surrounding her missing son. Sandra had followed Donald Campbell's rise in the business world, watching from afar as he transformed grief into empire building. Sometimes she wondered if she should tell him about Logan, about the silver necklace and the coincidences that seemed too meaningful to ignore. But fear held her back: fear of losing Logan, fear of disrupting the peaceful life they'd built, fear of facing her own role in that tragic night. A small sound from Logan's room drew her attention. She found him asleep, one hand clutching the silver necklace as he often did when dreaming. Sandra gently brushed his hair back, her heart full of love and protective instinct. Whatever secrets the past held, her priority was protecting this child who had brought light back into her life. Tomorrow would bring another day of teaching, of watching Logan grow, of carrying the weight of unspoken truths. But for now, in the quiet of their small apartment, Sandra Walker held onto the family she'd found in the aftermath of tragedy, unaware that fate was about to bring all her carefully guarded secrets into the light. Conrad Steele stood at the window of his private club, swirling aged scotch in a crystal glass as he watched Seattle's elite hurry through the rain below. 7 years had done little to diminish his thirst for revenge. Donald Campbell had destroyed his empire, exposed his corruption, but Steele had patience. He'd spent these years rebuilding in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "Mr. Steele," his secretary announced, "Mrs. Harper is here with her report." The older woman entered, her posture rigid as always. For 7 years she'd played her role perfectly, the loyal housekeeper in Donald Campbell's mansion, gathering intelligence while maintaining her cover. Few knew that before entering Campbell's household, she'd been Steele's most trusted employee. "What news from our friend?" Steele asked, not turning from the window. The city lights reflected in his cold eyes, a predator's gaze fixed on unseen prey. "Mr. Campbell remains." Troubled, Mrs. Harper reported carefully. "The anniversary of their deaths approaches. He's been visiting the accident site more frequently." She hesitated, weighing her next words. "Sir, after all these years, perhaps..." Perhaps what Steele's voice carried a warning edge. Perhaps I should forget how he destroyed everything I built. How he turned my own brother against me. His grip tightened on the glass. David's betrayal still burned his younger brother, choosing to help Olivia Campbell escape, refusing to reveal Matthew's location even under torture. Mrs. Harper fell silent, remembering David's broken body found in the river months after Olivia's death. Steele had called it justice, she called it fratricide in her private thoughts. But such thoughts remained unspoken. She'd seen what happened to those who questioned Conrad Steele. "There's something else," she said instead. "A teacher at the local elementary school. There's a boy in her care. The timing matches, and he wears a silver necklace with familiar initials." Steele turned sharply, interest flickering in his expression. "Matthew Campbell." "Possibly. The boy goes by Logan now. His adopted mother is a former ER nurse named Sandra Walker." Steele set down his glass, moving to his desk where files spread across the polished surface. 7 years of surveillance on Donald Campbell. "Find everything about this Sandra Walker and the boy. I want proof of his identity." So Mrs. Harper ventured, "If he is Matthew Campbell, what do you intend?" "To finish what we started," Steele cut her off. "Donald Campbell took everything from me. It's only fair I return the favor." He picked up a photograph Donald at Matthew's 3rd birthday, the same day he'd given his son the silver necklace. "This time we'll make sure there are no loose ends." In her apartment that night, Mrs. Harper sat at her kitchen table, conflict weighing heavily on her conscience. The boy Logan, or Matthew, had shown her kindness during her time in Campbell's household. His innocent smiles reminded her of David in his youth, before Steele's influence had cast a shadow over their family. Her phone buzzed a message from one of Steele's men requesting information about Sandra Walker's routine. Mrs. Harper's hands trembled slightly as she replied, She'd followed Steele's orders for years, driven by loyalty and fear in equal measure. But now, watching him plot against a child, she felt the first real stirrings of doubt. On her mantel stood an old photograph of three people herself, Steele and David in happier times. David had always been the conscience of the family, the one who saw good in everyone. His final words to her before his death echoed in her memory, "It's never too late to choose a different path." But Steele's web of influence spread far and wide. His new operation, though smaller than before, was more dangerous, a network of desperate men with nothing to lose. They watched Sandra's apartment, monitored Campbell's movements, gathered intelligence on everyone connected to their targets. Steele himself had changed over the years, his quest for revenge consuming any remnant of the man who had once helped raise his younger brother. The loss of his empire had twisted him, turning calculation into cruelty. His patience made him more dangerous, a predator willing to wait years for the perfect moment to strike. As rain pattered against her windows, Mrs. Harper made herself a cup of tea, trying to steady her nerves. Soon she would have to choose remain loyal to the man who had given her everything, or protect an innocent child who unknowingly carried the weight of a 7-year vendetta. Either way, blood would be spilled, and more lives would be destroyed in Conrad Steele's web of revenge. The rain hammered against Donald Campbell's windshield as he drove through Seattle's deserted streets on Christmas Eve. Each drop echoed like a distant memory, the rhythmic beating matching his restless heart. He had no destination in mind. These aimless drives had become his ritual on nights when the silence of his mansion grew too oppressive. Christmas lights twinkled in shop windows, their cheerful glow a stark contrast to the darkness he carried within. 7 years of Christmas Eves, each one a reminder of what he'd lost. He could still hear Matthew's excited chatter about Santa, still see Olivia arranging presents under their tree. The memories felt like shards of glass, beautiful but cutting deep. His car glided past empty bus stops and closed stores, the city seeming to hold its breath under the weight of the storm. Through the rain-streaked windows, a flicker of movement caught his attention. He slowed, squinting through the downpour at a bus stop where two figures huddled beneath the thin shelter. A woman and a child, he realized, both soaked despite the awning's meager protection. The woman clutched the boy close, trying to shield him from the bitter wind with her own body. Something about their vulnerability struck a chord in Donald's carefully guarded heart. "What am I doing?" he muttered to himself, but his foot was already easing onto the brake. The car rolled to a stop, hazard lights blinking against the darkness. Through the passenger window, he could see them more clearly now, the woman's determined expression, the child's tired eyes. "Do you need a ride?" The words left his mouth before he could reconsider, surprising himself with their spontaneity. The woman's arms tightened around the boy, wariness evident in her stance. "We're fine," she replied, though her voice trembled slightly from the cold. The boy whimpered, a small sound that seemed to pierce the night. Donald leaned forward, trying to appear less threatening. "It's not safe out here, not in this weather." He reached for his wallet, holding out his driver's license. Donald Campbell. "Look, I'm not here to cause trouble, but this storm isn't letting up." The woman Sandra, though he didn't know her name yet, studied his license with exhausted eyes. The boy, Logan, pressed closer to her, his small hands clutching a worn backpack. Donald waited, rain drumming on the roof of his car, while she weighed her options. "All right," she finally said, her voice carrying both resignation and relief. As they climbed into the back seat, Donald adjusted the heating, watching in the rearview mirror as the boy settled against his mother's side. It was then that he saw a flash of silver at the boy's throat, a necklace partially hidden by his coat collar. Donald's hands tightened on the steering wheel, his breath catching in his throat. It couldn't be, he told himself. The similarity was just his mind playing tricks, seeing ghosts in the shadows of Christmas Eve. "Where are you headed?" he asked, keeping his voice steady despite the sudden turmoil in his chest. "Where, in particular," Sandra admitted. "We missed the last bus." She didn't elaborate, and Donald didn't press. Something about their presence in his car felt significant, like the universe orchestrating a moment he wasn't yet ready to understand. The boy shifted, and the necklace caught the light again. Donald forced his eyes back to the road, but his mind raced. The child seemed about the right age, and something in his profile, glimpsed in the rearview mirror, tugged at Donald's memories. Without conscious decision, he found himself driving toward his mansion. The grand gates swung open at their approach, and he heard Sandra's sharp intake of breath as the house came into view. Even in the rain, its imposing facade spoke of wealth and isolation. "You live here?" Sandra's voice was soft, tinged with disbelief. "It's just a place to sleep," Donald replied, the rehearsed dismissal hiding years of pain. He helped them from the car, holding an umbrella against the relentless rain. The boy Logan looked up at the mansion with wide eyes, momentarily forgetting his exhaustion. In the vast foyer, their wet footsteps echoed on marble floors. Mrs. Harper appeared, her surprise carefully masked behind professional efficiency. Donald noticed her sharp glance at the necklace around Logan's neck, but she said nothing as she went to fetch towels. As Donald watched Sandra dry Logan's hair with gentle movements, something shifted in his carefully ordered world. The boy's presence filled the empty spaces of the mansion with an energy he'd almost forgotten. When Logan smiled shyly at him, Donald felt the walls he'd built around his heart begin to crack. But it was the necklace that kept drawing his gaze, the same delicate chain, the same small charm he'd chosen for Matthew's 3rd birthday. His mind rebelled against the possibility even as his heart raced with recognition. 7 years of searching, of grieving, of building an empire from loss, and now on Christmas Eve, a miracle sat in his living room, wrapped in one of his towels. Donald excused himself to the kitchen, needing a moment to steady his racing thoughts. Through the doorway he could hear Logan's quiet voice asking Sandra about the books lining the shelves. The sound echoed through the mansion like a ghost of Christmas past, bringing with it both pain and an unexpected flicker of hope. Sandra sat in Donald Campbell's opulent living room, her hands wrapped around a steaming cup of tea she hadn't tasted. Every instinct told her she shouldn't be here in this mansion that screamed of wealth and power, accepting help from a stranger whose name she recognized from newspaper headlines. Yet the storm outside and Logan's exhaustion had left her little choice. She watched Logan exploring the bookshelves, his natural curiosity momentarily overcoming his usual shyness. The silver necklace glinted at his throat, and Sandra's stomach tightened with familiar anxiety. That necklace had been his only possession when she'd found him at the children's home, its origins a mystery that had haunted her for years. Donald Campbell's reaction to the necklace hadn't escaped her notice. She'd seen his double-take in the rearview mirror, the way his knuckles had whitened on the steering wheel. Now, as he returned from the kitchen, his gaze kept drifting to Logan with an intensity that made her maternal instincts flare. "Logan, sweetheart," she called softly, "come sit down." "It's getting late," the boy obeyed, curling up beside her on the leather sofa that probably cost more than her yearly salary. She could feel Mrs. Harper's watchful presence, the housekeeper's stern disapproval radiating from the doorway. "You're a teacher?" Donald's question broke the silence, his voice carefully neutral. Sandra nodded, unconsciously pulling Logan closer. "2nd and 3rd grade at Riverside Elementary," she replied. "Logan's actually one of my best students in math." She smiled down at the boy, who beamed with pride despite his drowsiness. But even as she spoke, Sandra's mind raced. The timing couldn't be coincidence. Donald Campbell's lost son would be Logan's age now. She remembered the newspaper articles about the tragic accident, about the body of Olivia Campbell found in the wreckage, while her young son remained missing. The same night she'd tried to save Olivia in the ER, the same desperate plea, find Matthew. Logan yawned, snuggling closer to her side. "Miss Sandra," he murmured, "can we read a story?" His fingers absently traced the initials on his necklace, MJC, a habit he'd had since she'd adopted him. Sandra saw Donald freeze at the gesture, his composed facade cracking for just a moment. The weight of unspoken questions filled the room, heavy as the storm clouds outside. She had always known this day might come, when Logan's past would catch up with them, when the careful life they'd built together might unravel. "Perhaps we should prepare the guest room," Mrs. Harper suggested, her tone making it clear she'd rather show them the door. But Donald nodded quickly, almost eagerly. "Of course. The storm's only getting worse. You're welcome to stay the night." His eyes met Sandra's, pleading silently for her to accept. Sandra hesitated. Staying meant questions she wasn't ready to answer, truths she'd pushed away for years. But the exhaustion in Logan's eyes made the decision for her. "Thank you," she said quietly. "That's very kind." As Mrs. Harper led them upstairs, Sandra caught a glimpse of Donald standing in his study, holding what looked like a photograph frame. The pain in his expression was raw, unguarded, a father's grief laid bare when he thought no one was watching. In the guest room, Sandra tucked Logan into bed, her heart aching as she watched him sleep. She'd loved him from the moment she'd seen him at the children's home, this quiet boy with old eyes and a mysterious necklace. The adoption papers had listed him as abandoned, parents unknown, but she'd always suspected there was more to his story. She touched the silver chain gently, remembering how fiercely he'd clung to it in those early days. Had some part of him remembered? Did he carry memories of his mother's last desperate act of love, of the father who now stood below, unaware his lost son slept under his roof? A soft knock at the door made her turn. Mrs. Harper stood there with extra blankets, her expression softer as she looked at Logan's sleeping form. "He seems like a good boy," the housekeeper said, surprising Sandra with the warmth in her voice. "He is," Sandra whispered. "He's everything to me." The words carried a weight of truth and fear, fear of losing him, fear of the questions tomorrow would bring, fear of the past catching up with their carefully constructed present. As Mrs. Harper left, Sandra sank into an armchair by the window, watching the rain sheet down the glass. Somewhere in this mansion were answers she'd been avoiding for years. Donald Campbell's presence downstairs represented both threat and possibility, the power to shatter their world or to complete it. The thunder rumbled outside and Logan stirred in his sleep, his hand automatically reaching for the necklace. Sandra watched him, love and protective instinct warring with the growing certainty that their quiet life was about to change forever. Whatever tomorrow brought, she would face it as she had faced everything since finding Logan, with the fierce determination of a mother protecting her child, even if that meant facing the ghosts of his past. Logan woke early the next morning in a bed that felt like clouds, sunlight filtering through curtains grander than any he'd ever seen. For a moment he lay still, his small fingers finding the familiar comfort of his silver necklace, the one possession that had been with him for as long as he could remember. Something about this huge house felt strangely familiar, like a dream he couldn't quite recall. From his window he could see a garden below, frost glittering on carefully trimmed hedges. It was different from the small park near his apartment with Miss Sandra, where they often played after school. Yet there was something about the stone pathway that tugged at his memory, a fleeting image of running along it, laughing, chasing butterflies. "Good morning, sweetheart." Miss Sandra's voice came from the doorway. She was already dressed, but Logan could see worry in her eyes, the kind she tried to hide when she thought he wasn't looking. "Morning, Miss Sandra," he replied, climbing out of bed. "Did you see all the books downstairs?" "There's more than in the whole school library." His excitement made her smile, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. As they made their way to breakfast, Logan noticed how Mr. Campbell watched him. The man's gaze felt heavy, like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Logan had seen that look before in the faces of adults at the children's home, in Miss Sandra's eyes when she first met him, in the way people sometimes stared at his necklace. The breakfast table was huge, set with fine china that made Logan nervous about breaking something. Mrs. Harper served pancakes that looked like pictures in a cookbook, but Logan missed the slightly burnt ones Miss Sandra made on Sunday mornings, topped with strawberries from the market. "Do you like school, Logan?" Mr. Campbell asked, his voice gentle but intense. Logan nodded eagerly. "Miss Sandra's the best teacher. She helps me with math when it's hard, and she never gets mad when I can't figure things out right away." He smiled at her, seeing the love in her returning glance. But as he reached for the syrup, his necklace slipped out from under his pajama top. Mr. Campbell's sharp intake of breath made Logan instinctively tuck it back in a protective gesture he'd developed over years of curious questions. "That's a very special necklace," Mr. Campbell said carefully. "Do you remember where you got it?" Logan's hand went to the silver charm, tracing the familiar initials as he always did when feeling uncertain. "I've always had it," he replied softly. "Sometimes I dream about someone putting it on me, but I can't see their face." The silence that followed felt heavy. Logan saw Miss Sandra and Mr. Campbell exchange a look he couldn't understand. He'd noticed adults doing that a lot, sharing secrets in glances, thinking children couldn't read the worry in their eyes. After breakfast, Logan wandered into the library, drawn to the endless rows of books. One caught his eye, a collection of children's stories bound in blue leather. Without knowing why, he reached for it, as if his hands remembered something his mind had forgotten. "That was my son's favorite," Mr. Campbell's voice made Logan jump. The man stood in the doorway, his expression a mix of pain and wonder. "He used to make me read it every night before bed." "What happened to him?" Logan asked, the question slipping out before he could stop it. Mr. Campbell moved closer, kneeling to Logan's level. "I lost him," he said simply, his voice rough with emotion. "And his mother. A long time ago." Logan looked down at the book in his hands, feeling a strange ache in his chest. "I don't remember my first mom and dad," he admitted, "but Miss Sandra says it's okay to love new people while still keeping the old ones in your heart." Something flickered in Mr. Campbell's eyes, hope perhaps, or recognition. He reached out slowly, as if afraid Logan might disappear, and touched the edge of the necklace chain. "Sometimes," he said softly, "the people we think we've lost find their way back to us." Logan didn't fully understand the words, but he felt their weight. He looked up at this man who seemed both stranger and familiar, whose mansion held echoes of memories he couldn't quite grasp. The morning sun through the library windows caught his necklace, making the initials MJC shine like a beacon between them. "Can I borrow this book?" Logan asked, holding up the blue volume. "I promise to be careful with it." Mr. Campbell smiled, and for a moment Logan saw tears in his eyes. "Of course," he said, "it belongs to you more than anyone." As Logan settled into a window seat to read, he felt the strange comfort of the house wrapping around him. Miss Sandra watched from the doorway, Mr. Campbell stood by his desk, and even Mrs. Harper paused in her duties to observe the scene. None of them spoke, but Logan sensed something shifting, like pieces of a puzzle slowly coming together. He opened the book, and a memory flickered, a woman's voice reading these same words, a man's laugh, the feel of being held safe and loved. The memory faded as quickly as it came, but it left behind a warmth that matched the weight of the silver necklace against his heart. Donald Campbell sat in his study long after Sandra and Logan had left, the silver necklace burning in his memory. His hands trembled as he dialed a familiar number, each ring echoing his racing heartbeat. "Logan," he said when the line connected, "I need you to investigate something. It's about a boy." He paused, steadying his voice. "His name is Logan. He's a student at Riverside Elementary, lives with his adopted mother, Sandra Walker." Morgan, the private investigator who'd spent 7 years searching for Matthew, understood the urgency in Donald's tone. "What triggered this, Mr. Campbell?" "Oh, the necklace, Morgan. He's wearing Matthew's necklace, the one I gave him for his 3rd birthday. MJC Matthew James Campbell. It's identical, down to the smallest detail." Papers rustled on Morgan's end. "I'll start immediately. The adoption records, Sandra Walker's background, everything." Within hours, Morgan's preliminary findings began arriving. Sandra Walker had been an ER nurse at Seattle General before becoming a teacher. The timing made Donald's heart stop. She'd been working the night Olivia died. His fingers clenched around the report as he read further. "Mrs. Harper," he called, his voice sharp with tension. The housekeeper appeared immediately, her face carefully neutral. "What do you make of them, Sandra and Logan?" "The boy seems familiar," Mrs. Harper admitted, choosing her words carefully. Something in his mannerisms, the way he moved. She paused, then added, "Here's Mrs. Campbell's smile." Donald turned to the window, fighting for composure. "Watch them, Mrs. Harper. Discreetly. I need to know everything, their routines, their interactions, anyone who visits them." As days passed, Morgan's investigation deepened. Logan's adoption records showed he'd been found at a Portland church, age 3, with nothing but a silver necklace and a blanket. The timing aligned perfectly with Olivia's accident. The church's location was just miles from where her car had gone off the road. There's more, Morgan reported during their daily call. "I found the priest who was there when the boy was brought in. He remembers a woman frantic, soaking wet. She begged them to keep the child safe, said someone was after them." Donald's hand tightened on the phone. "Olivia," he whispered. "She got him out. She saved him." But it was the hospital records that shattered any doubt. Sandra Walker had been the last person to speak with Olivia Campbell. The ER report noted the dying woman's final words, a plea to find Matthew. Sandra had signed the death certificate, her shift ending just hours before Logan was found at the Portland church. She must have known, Donald said to his empty study. All these years she must have suspected who he was. Mrs. Harper's surveillance revealed a loving home, though modest. Logan and Sandra had breakfast together every morning. She helped with his homework, read him stories, tucked him in at night. They visited the park on weekends, bought groceries at the local market, attended school functions together. A normal life, built on extraordinary circumstances. Donald watched their apartment from his car one evening, seeing Logan's silhouette in the window as Sandra prepared dinner. The boy's hand went to his necklace, a gesture Donald had seen Matthew make 1,000 times. The similarity was unbearable. "Run a DNA test," he ordered Morgan. Discreetly, "I need to be certain." "Mr. Campbell," Morgan warned, "if we're wrong about this." "And if we're right," Donald's voice cracked. "If that's my son, living across town, wearing the necklace I gave him, not knowing who he is, who I am." The investigation expanded. Morgan dug into Sandra's life after that night at the hospital, her sudden career change, the timing of Logan's adoption, her move to a new apartment. Everything pointed to a woman protecting a child, perhaps keeping secrets she never intended to reveal. Mrs. Harper reported that Sandra seemed increasingly nervous, checking over her shoulder more often, hurrying Logan inside their building. "She knows she's being watched," the housekeeper observed. "She's protective, like a mother bear." Donald struggled with his next move. Part of him wanted to confront Sandra immediately, demand answers about that night, about her role in Matthew's disappearance and reappearance as Logan. But the memory of the boy's trust, his innocent attachment to the only mother he remembered, made him hesitate. The DNA results would take a few days, Morgan informed him. "But there's something else you should know. Someone else has been watching them. Professional surveillance, not just us." Donald's blood ran cold. "Who?" "Working on it. But whoever it is, they've been there longer than we have. And they're not just watching, they're waiting for something." The implications hit Donald like a physical blow. If Logan was Matthew, if Olivia had died protecting him from some unknown threat, that threat might still exist. His son might still be in danger, and Sandra, whether knowing or unknowing, might be the only thing standing between him and harm. In his mansion that night, Donald walked the halls restlessly, past Matthew's preserved room, past the library where Logan had sat reading his son's favorite book. The pieces were falling into place, forming a picture both beautiful and terrifying. His son might be alive, but finding him could put both him and Sandra in danger. "What do you want me to do?" Morgan asked in their final call of the night. Donald stared at the family portrait on his desk, Olivia, himself and Matthew wearing his new silver necklace. "Keep watching," he ordered. "Protect them if needed, but don't intervene. Not yet. I need to know everything before I make my move. I won't risk losing him again." Sandra noticed the tale 2 days after their night at the Campbell mansion. A black sedan, too clean for casual use, parked 3 cars behind her at every stoplight. Someone was watching, and she had a sickening feeling she knew why. The silver necklace. Donald Campbell's reaction. The way he'd stared at Logan like a man seeing a ghost. Her carefully constructed world was beginning to crack, and fear crept in through the fissures. At school, she felt eyes on her constantly. Mrs. Harper appeared frequently, ostensibly touring the facility as a potential donor's representative. But Sandra caught her studying Logan during recess, taking notes on her phone, watching their interactions with calculated interest. Miss Sandra Logan tugged at her sleeve during lunch break. "Why does that lady from Mr. Campbell's house keep coming to school?" Sandra's heart clenched. Even Logan had noticed. "Sometimes adults have to check on schools," she said carefully. "It's nothing to worry about, sweetheart." But there was plenty to worry about. Anonymous emails arrived questioning her adoption of Logan. The school principal called her in to discuss concerns about her background. Her old hospital records had been accessed, specifically those from the night Olivia Campbell died. Then came the envelope in her mailbox, photographs of her and Logan over the past week. At the park, outside their apartment, at the grocery store. A note accompanied them. "What are you hiding, Miss Walker?" She recognized Donald Campbell's resources at work. The man who'd seemed so broken and kind on Christmas Eve was now systematically dismantling her life, searching for answers she'd tried to bury 7 years ago. That night, after tucking Logan into bed, Sandra pulled out her own hidden file newspaper clippings about the Campbell tragedy, copies of Logan's adoption papers, and her notes from that fateful night in the ER. Olivia Campbell's last words echoed in her memory, "Please, find Matthew." Had she known then? When she discovered Logan at the Portland Children's Home, wearing the necklace with those distinctive initials, had some part of her recognized Olivia's son? Sandra had told herself she was simply saving a lost child, but now she questioned her own motives. The next day, Donald Campbell himself appeared at the school, requesting a meeting. Sandra felt trapped, cornered in her own classroom after the students had left. "Why didn't you tell me?" His voice was controlled, but barely. "That night at my house, when you saw how I reacted to the necklace, why didn't you say anything?" Sandra stood her ground. "Tell you what, Mr. Campbell, that I adopted a boy who needed a home, that I've loved him and protected him for 4 years. That he's my son." Donald's composure cracked. "That necklace, I had it specially made for Matthew. The initials, the design, everything matches. You were there the night Olivia died. You heard her last words. You must have known." "I knew nothing for certain," Sandra shot back, her own anger rising. "I found a traumatized child who needed love, not questions about a past he couldn't remember. I gave him that a normal life, a chance to be happy." "While I grieved," Donald's voice was raw. "While I searched everywhere for him, built an empire trying to find him, you had him across town, teaching him, raising him, keeping him from me." Keeping him safe. Sandra's protective instincts flared. "Do you know what it was like? Finding him at that children's home, so quiet, so afraid. He wouldn't let anyone touch that necklace, wouldn't speak for weeks. I gave him stability, routine, love. What gives you the right to destroy that now?" Their voices had risen, echoing in the empty classroom. Neither noticed Logan standing in the doorway, his face pale, hands clutching his silver necklace. "Miss Sandra," his small voice cut through their argument like a knife. Both adults turned, seeing the confusion and fear in his eyes. "Why are you fighting?" Sandra moved to him immediately, but Logan stepped back, looking between her and Donald with growing uncertainty. The necklace caught the afternoon light, the initials MJC gleaming like an accusation. "Logan, sweetheart," Sandra began, but Donald cut her off. "His name is Matthew," he said firmly. "Matthew James Campbell, my son." Logan's eyes widened, his hand tightening around the necklace. "Miss Sandra," he whispered again, pleading for explanation, for reassurance, for the simple truth that had become suddenly terrifyingly complicated. Sandra felt her world tilting. The mystery she'd protected, the peace she'd built, the love she'd nurtured, all of it balanced on the edge of a silver necklace worn by a confused little boy looking at her with questions she didn't know how to answer. "I think," she said finally, her voice shaking, "we all need to talk. But not here, not like this." Donald nodded stiffly, his anger tempered by Logan's distress. They had reached a breaking point where truth and lies, past and present, love and loss all converged in the innocent eyes of a child caught between them. They gathered in Donald's study that evening, the room heavy with unspoken truths. Logan sat between Sandra and Donald on the leather sofa, his small fingers never leaving the silver necklace that had sparked this confrontation. Mrs. Harper hovered in the doorway, her stern facade cracking with concern. "Logan," Sandra began gently, "there's something we need to tell you about your necklace. About where you came from." She glanced at Donald, who nodded slightly, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. "A long time ago," Donald continued, his voice soft but strained, "I gave this exact necklace to my son, Matthew, for his 3rd birthday. Those initials MJC, they stand for Matthew James Campbell." Logan looked down at the silver charm he'd worn for as long as he could remember. "But my name is Logan," he said uncertainly. "When I found you at the children's home," Sandra explained, "you were too young to remember your name. The necklace was your only possession. We gave you a new name, a new start." "I don't understand." Logan's voice trembled. "Are you saying Mr. Campbell is my real dad?" The word real made Sandra flinch. Donald leaned forward, his eyes intense. "Yes, Logan. Matthew, you're my son. Your mother, Olivia, she saved you the night of the accident. She got you to safety before." He couldn't finish. I was there, Sandra admitted, the words she'd held back for years finally spilling out. I was the nurse when your mother came to the hospital. Her last words were about you, begging someone to find you and keep you safe. Logan's eyes filled with tears. But you're my mom, he said to Sandra, his voice breaking. You take care of me, you love me. Oh, sweetheart, Sandra pulled him close, her own tears falling. I do love you, so much. Nothing will ever change that. And I've loved you every day since I lost you, Donald added, his composure cracking. I've searched for you, prayed for you, hoped somehow you were alive somewhere. Logan looked between them, overwhelmed. His hand clutched the necklace tighter, as if it might anchor him in this storm of revelations. Did my first mom love me too? Donald's breath caught. He reached for the photograph on his desk, the last family picture taken on Matthew's 3rd birthday. She loved you more than anything in this world, he said, showing Logan the image of Olivia beaming at the camera, her arms around a laughing toddler wearing a brand new silver necklace. Logan stared at the photograph, his finger tracing his mother's face. I remember her smile, he whispered. Sometimes in my dreams. Mrs. Harper stepped forward, placing a hand on Logan's shoulder. You have her smile, she said softly. I've noticed it since the first time I saw you. The boy looked up at her, then back at Donald and Sandra. What happens now, he asked, the question they'd all been avoiding. Nothing has to change right away, Sandra assured him, though her heart ached with uncertainty. We can take time to figure this out together. Together, Donald repeated, a question and a hope in his voice. Sandra met his gaze over Logan's head. Yes, together. Logan, Matthew, he needs both of us. He needs to understand where he came from, but also know that he's still loved and safe. Logan relaxed slightly between them, the tension in his small shoulders easing. Can I call you Dad, he asked Donald hesitantly, and still call you Mom, he turned to Sandra. Both adults nodded, tears flowing freely now. Donald reached out, his hand hovering near the necklace. May I, he asked. Logan nodded, and Donald gently lifted the silver chain, examining the initials he'd chosen so long ago. I had this made specially for you. Your mother helped me pick out the design. It's beautiful, Mrs. Harper commented from her position by the door. A perfect bridge between past and present. As the evening light faded outside, they remained in the study, sharing stories, memories, and hopes. Logan listened intently as Donald described Olivia, drinking in details of the mother he couldn't remember. Sandra added her own memories of that night in the ER, carefully edited to protect Logan from the harsher truths. But beneath the tentative peace, questions still lurked. Why had Olivia been running that night? Who had she been protecting Logan from? The answers lay buried in the past, waiting to resurface and threaten their newfound understanding. For now, though, they focused on the miracle before them, a family fractured by tragedy, slowly, carefully beginning to heal. The silver necklace caught the last rays of sunset, its initials no longer a mystery, but a promise of connection, of love that had survived 7 years of separation. Conrad Steele slammed the surveillance photos onto his desk, his rage palpable in the quiet office. So the boy survived, he snarled at his assembled team. Olivia Campbell managed to hide him after all. The images showed Logan at school, playing in the park, walking with Sandra, and most recently, entering Donald Campbell's mansion. Steele's fingers traced the silver necklace visible in one clear shot, his expression darkening with recognition. So one of his men ventured, "What are your orders?" Steele's response was cold, calculated. Start with the teacher, Sandra Walker. Destroy her reputation first. Make her look unstable, dangerous. Then we'll take the boy. The attack began subtly. Anonymous letters arrived at Riverside Elementary, questioning Sandra's fitness to teach. Parents received emails detailing fabricated incidents, suggesting she had a violent past. The school board called an emergency meeting to discuss the concerning allegations. Meanwhile, Mrs. Harper watched it all unfold from her position within Campbell's household, her loyalties increasingly torn. She'd served Steele for years, but watching Logan, seeing Olivia's smile in his face, David's gentleness in his manner made her question everything. The board wants to suspend me, Sandra told Donald in his study, her voice tight with anger. They're saying I falsified my adoption records, that I'm mentally unstable. Someone's orchestrating this. Donald's face darkened. He'd seen these tactics before. Steele, he said grimly. He's behind this. He's the one Olivia was running from that night. The same man who destroyed your company, Sandra's hand, went instinctively to her phone, checking that Logan was still safe at his after-school program. The same man who's about to learn what happens when you threaten my son. Donald's voice carried a dangerous edge, and the woman who protected him. But Steele was already moving to his next phase. Sandra's apartment was broken into, though nothing was taken. Her car's brakes showed signs of tampering. Parents pulled their children from her class, citing safety concerns. Logan noticed the changes. "Why are people being mean to you, Mum?" he asked Sandra one evening, his eyes worried. "Tommy's mom wouldn't let him come to my birthday party. She said you're dangerous." Sandra held him close, meeting Donald's gaze across the room. They'd agreed to protect Logan from the full truth, but the walls were closing in. The threat escalated when Sandra found photographs in her mailbox, surveillance shots of Logan alone. A note read simply, "Children should be with their real families." Donald immediately moved them both into his mansion. "It's safer here," he insisted. "Better security, controlled access. Steele won't be able to reach either of you." But Steele had planned for this. The next morning, child services arrived at the mansion, armed with anonymous reports about Sandra's mental state and Logan's safety. "We have concerns about the boy's living situation," the social worker stated formally. "These reports suggest MS. Walker obtained custody through fraudulent means." "This is ridiculous," Donald argued. "I've had my legal team verify every document. The adoption is completely legitimate. Nevertheless, we're required to investigate, and given the severity of the allegations, we may need to temporarily remove the child from MS Walker's custody." Logan, overhearing from the hallway, ran to Sandra in panic. "Mom, they can't take me away. Please don't let them." Sandra held him tightly, her voice fierce despite her fear. "No one is taking you anywhere, sweetheart. I promise." Mrs. Harper watched the scene unfold, then slipped away to make a phone call. "It's gone too far," she told Steele. "The boy is innocent in all this." "The boy is the key to destroying Campbell," Steele replied coldly. "Don't go soft now, Harper. Remember where your loyalties lie." But, as Mrs. Harper ended the call, she looked at the old photograph on her desk herself, Steele and David in happier times. Her brother's last words echoed in her memory: "Protect the innocent, Sarah, no matter the cost." That evening, Morgan brought more disturbing news. "Steele's men are positioned around the mansion," he reported. "They're watching every exit, and they've got people inside the child services department, the school board, even the local police." Donald paced his study, fury and fear warring in his expression. He won't stop, he realized. Not until he has Logan. This was never about money or power, it's about taking everything I love. Again. Sandra sat on the sofa, Logan asleep with his head in her lap, the silver necklace glinting in the lamplight. "We need to fight back," she said quietly. "Not just protect ourselves, but stop him. For good this time." "It won't be easy," Donald warned. "Steele spent years building his network, placing his people in key positions. He's patient, ruthless." "So are we." Sandra's voice hardened. "He doesn't understand what he's up against. A father who's already lost his son once, and a mother who's kept him safe for 7 years. We're not letting him win." The tide began to turn on a Tuesday morning when Emily Chen, a parent from Sandra's class, arrived at the mansion clutching a stack of papers. "My husband works in it," she explained. "He traced those malicious emails. They all lead back to shell companies owned by Conrad Steele." Sandra and Donald exchanged glances. It was their first real breakthrough. Emily wasn't finished. "The other parents need to know the truth. We trust you with our children, Miss Walker. We won't let someone destroy that trust with lies." By evening, Emily had organized a group of parents in Sandra's defense. They gathered in Donald's living room, teachers, parents, former students, all sharing stories of Sandra's dedication and kindness. "She spent her own money buying Tommy's school supplies when we couldn't afford them," one mother testified. "She stayed late every day for 3 months helping my daughter overcome her reading difficulties," another added. Morgan arrived with more allies. Former employees Steele had ruined, journalists who'd been silenced, officials who'd been threatened. Each carried a piece of the puzzle, evidence of Steele's decades of corruption. "The pattern's always the same," Morgan explained, laying out documents across Donald's desk. "He destroys people by attacking what they love most. But this time he left a trail." Mrs. Harper watched from the shadows, her conscience weighing heavier with each revelation. During a quiet moment, she approached Sandra, who was helping Logan with his homework. "I need to tell you something," she began, her voice trembling. "About Steele. About why I've worked for Donald all these years." She paused, gathering courage. "I was placed here to spy on him. But seeing you with Logan, remembering my brother David, I can't do this anymore." Sandra stared at her, processing this betrayal turned confession. "David?" "The man from the church." "My younger brother." Mrs. Harper's eyes filled with tears. "Steele had him killed for helping Olivia escape with Matthew. His own brother murdered for showing mercy." The confession changed everything. Mrs. Harper became their most valuable eye, providing detailed information about Steele's operations, his weaknesses, his plans. Donald's legal team worked through the night building a case. Emily's husband and his colleagues traced digital footprints, uncovering Steele's network of fraudulent companies. Morgan's investigators gathered testimonies from people Steele had destroyed over the years. But their strongest supporters came from an unexpected source: Sandra's students. When the school board met to discuss her suspension, they found the building surrounded by children and parents holding handmade signs: "We stand with Miss Walker," and "Teachers change lives." Logan watched from the mansion's window as news coverage showed the growing protest. "They're all there because they love you, Mum," he said proudly. The media caught wind of the story. Headlines shifted from "Teacher under investigation" to "Community rallies behind beloved educator." Reporters began digging into Steele's past, uncovering connections to other families he'd destroyed. Donald used his business contacts to pressure board members who'd been influenced by Steele. "You have a choice," he told them. "Stand with a corrupt man who threatens children, or protect an innocent teacher who's dedicated her life to helping them." The tide of public opinion turned. Parents who'd pulled their children from Sandra's class began reaching out, apologizing, offering support. Former students shared stories of her impact on their lives. The community that Steele had tried to turn against her became her strongest defense. Mrs. Harper provided the final peace documents proving Steele's involvement in Olivia's death, in David's murder, in the campaign against Sandra. He kept records, she explained. Insurance, he called it. Protection against betrayal. Donald and Sandra worked side by side, their shared love for Logan forging a powerful alliance. They coordinated with lawyers, spoke to journalists, rallied supporters. Each attack Steele launched strengthened their resolve and brought more allies to their cause. "We're not just fighting for Logan now," Sandra realized one evening, watching the boy sleep peacefully. "We're fighting for every family Steele has tried to destroy, every child he's tried to hurt." Donald nodded, his hand finding hers in the dim light. "And we're not fighting alone anymore." The alliance they'd built grew stronger each day. Parents, teachers, journalists, investigators, all united against Steele's corruption. What he'd intended as a weapon against them had become their greatest strength: community. As the battle against Steele intensified, an unexpected transformation was taking place within the walls of the Campbell mansion. Logan, once caught between two worlds, began to bridge them with the natural grace of childhood. "Dad," he called one morning, the word still new on his tongue, "can you help me with this model airplane? Mom says you used to build them too." Donald froze, emotion catching in his throat. He remembered building models with Matthew, the careful instructions, the shared concentration. Now here was his son again, offering him a second chance at those precious moments. "Of course," he managed, sitting beside Logan at the kitchen table. "I used to build these with you when you were very little." Logan looked up, curious rather than troubled by these references to his past. "Did I like it then too?" "You loved it," Donald smiled, showing him how to sort the pieces. "Though you had less patience, you always wanted to skip to the end." Sandra watched from the doorway as father and son bent their heads together over the model, their matching expressions of concentration making her heart ache with tenderness. These quiet moments were healing them all. Mrs. Harper, too, was changing. Her stern exterior softened, particularly around Logan. She began sharing stories about David, letting the boy see the human behind the housekeeper's facade. "Your mother liked these cookies," she told Logan one afternoon, pulling a batch from the oven. David, my brother, he used to sneak them to her during boring business parties. Can you teach me to make them? Logan asked. Soon the kitchen filled with laughter as flour dusted their clothes and memories mixed with new traditions. Sandra found herself opening up as well, sharing the weight she'd carried for 7 years. I see her in you sometimes, she told Logan as they worked on his homework. Your first mother. The way you furrow your brow when you're thinking hard, just like she did in those final moments. Do you think she'd be happy? Logan asked. That I have 2 parents who love me now. Sandra hugged him close. Oh, sweetheart, I think that's exactly what she wanted for you. Donald and Sandra's relationship evolved too, their shared love for Logan creating a bridge between them. They found themselves talking late into the night after Logan was asleep, sharing stories of his past and present. He used to sing himself to sleep, Donald recalled one evening. Little songs he'd make up about his day. Sandra smiled. He still does. I hear him sometimes, especially when he's happy. The mansion itself seemed to transform, losing its museum-like quality. Logan's artwork appeared on the refrigerator, his toys scattered in the study, his laughter echoing through once silent halls. Harper no longer maintained the strict order of grief, allowing life to mess up the perfect surfaces. Even Morgan, the hardened investigator, softened around Logan. He taught the boy chess, delighting in his quick mind and eager questions. He has your strategic thinking, he told Donald, and Sandra's compassion. Quite a combination. The greatest change was in Logan himself. The quiet, watchful child began to bloom, secure in the knowledge that he was deeply loved. He moved between his 2 worlds with increasing confidence, bringing them together in his own way. You both came to my science fair, he announced proudly one day. None of the other kids have 2 parents who care that much. Donald and Sandra exchanged glances over his head, recognizing the wisdom in his simple observation. Their unusual family arrangement, born of tragedy and threat, had given Logan something unique, a double portion of love. Mrs. Harper watched this transformation with growing resolve. Her loyalty to Steele, once absolute, crumbled in the face of the family's growing bond. She began leaving detailed notes about Steele's plans in Donald's study, her own quiet form of redemption. David would have loved him, she told Sandra one evening, watching Logan help Donald in the garden. He gave his life to save that boy. Seeing him now so happy, so loved, it makes it mean something. As Steele's threats grew more intense, so did their determination to protect what they'd built. Logan's presence gave them strength, his innocent joy reminding them what they were fighting for. We're stronger together, Sandra realized, watching Logan fall asleep between them during a thunderstorm. Steele doesn't understand that. He thinks love makes us vulnerable, but it makes us unbreakable. Donald touched the silver necklace that still hung around Logan's neck. Olivia knew that. It's why she saved him, why she made sure he'd have people to love him. Through all the danger and uncertainty, they were building something beautiful, a family forged in adversity, strengthened by love, and determined to protect their own. Steele's first direct strike came on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Logan was walking from the school library to Sandra's classroom when 2 men in maintenance uniforms approached him. Your mom sent us, one said smoothly. She's had an accident. We're supposed to take you to the hospital? Logan hesitated, his hand going to his silver necklace, a gesture that had become his signal of distress. Something felt wrong. I should check with the office first, he said, backing away slowly, remembering Sandra's warnings about strangers. The men moved faster than Logan could run. One grabbed his arm while the other reached for a cloth in his pocket. But before they could act, Mrs. Harper appeared from around the corner, her voice sharp as a whip. Logan, inside, now. The men fled as teachers emerged from nearby classrooms. Logan ran to Mrs. Harper, shaking but safe. Later, security footage would show the men's connection to Steele, their carefully planned attempt thwarted only by Mrs. Harper's vigilant watch. The failed kidnapping was just the beginning. That evening, Sandra's face appeared on the local news, her reputation under vicious attack. Anonymous sources claim local teacher obtained adoption through fraud, the headline blared. Doctored documents suggested she had a criminal past, that she'd stolen Logan from his real family. Donald's empire wasn't spared either. His company's stock plummeted as false accusations of embezzlement hit the media. Major clients received fabricated evidence of financial misconduct. Board members started calling emergency meetings. "He's trying to destroy us from all angles," Donald said grimly, watching the news coverage. "Discredit Sandra, ruin my business, create enough chaos to grab Logan in the confusion." Sandra paced the study, her phone buzzing constantly with calls from concerned parents and reporters. The school board's calling another emergency meeting. "They're talking about immediate suspension, possibly revoking my teaching license." But Steele's most brutal attack targeted Logan's sense of security. The boy found notes in his backpack, carefully worded to create doubt. "Ask your mum about the night your real mother died," one read. "Ask why she kept you from your father for so long." Logan brought the notes to Sandra, his eyes filled with confusion and pain. "Is it true?" he asked. "Did you know about Dad all along? Did you keep me away on purpose?" Sandra gathered him close, her heart breaking. "No, sweetheart. I found you because your first mom made sure you'd be safe. I loved you from the moment I saw you. Everything I did was to protect you." Donald found them like that, huddled together on the sofa. He joined them, creating a protective circle around his son. "Your mother, Olivia, she was the bravest person I knew," he told Logan. "And Sandra is just as brave. They both loved you enough to risk everything to keep you safe." But Steele wasn't finished. The next morning, Child Services arrived with a court order, citing the serious allegations against Sandra. "We have to take temporary custody," they explained, reaching for Logan. "Just until these matters are resolved." Logan clung to Sandra, tears streaming down his face. "Mom, please, don't let them take me." Donald stepped forward, his voice cold with fury. "That order was obtained through fraudulent evidence. My lawyers are already filing an emergency appeal. You're not taking my son anywhere." The standoff in the mansion's foyer grew tense until Morgan arrived with the judge's stay order, temporarily blocking Logan's removal. But the threat had left its mark. Logan had nightmares that night, crying out for both Sandra and Donald in his sleep. Mrs. Harper watched it all with growing horror, her guilt becoming unbearable. She'd helped set these events in motion years ago, feeding Steele information about the Campbells. Now she saw the full scope of his cruelty, his willingness to traumatize a child to achieve his revenge. The attacks continued relentlessly. Sandra's car was vandalized. Donald's house was broken into. Logan needed a security escort to attend school. Their world shrank to a series of safe spaces, carefully guarded and increasingly fragile. But each attack also revealed Steele's desperation. His careful facade of legitimate business cracked as he grew more aggressive. People began to question the convenient timing of the allegations, the sudden appearance of evidence, the coordinated nature of the attacks. "He's getting sloppy," Morgan observed, reviewing security footage, "making mistakes. He wants revenge so badly he's exposing himself." Donald and Sandra knew the worst was yet to come. Steele wouldn't stop until he had destroyed them completely, or was destroyed himself. The question was how much damage would he do before either outcome was achieved. Logan, caught in the middle, showed a strength that amazed them all. He kept his necklace close, drew comfort from both parents, and faced each day with determined courage. "We're family," he told them one night. "All of us. And family stays together." Emily Chen sparked the community's resistance with a simple Facebook post, "My son's teacher is being attacked for protecting a child. Here's the truth about Sandra Walker." She shared stories of Sandra's dedication, late nights helping struggling students, using her own money for classroom supplies. The post went viral within the school community. Other parents began sharing their own experiences. "Miss Walker spent her Christmas break tutoring my daughter," one wrote. "She noticed my son's dyslexia when everyone else missed it," added another. Tommy's mother organized a protest outside the school board meeting. What started as a few parents grew into hundreds. Students made signs, "We love Miss Walker, teachers change lives, protect our Miss Sandra." The local news couldn't ignore the spectacle of elementary school children standing up for their teacher. "Look, Mom," Logan pointed to the TV coverage where his classmates were being interviewed. "They're all there because they know you're good." The protest gained momentum when Donald's former employees joined in. People Steele had ruined over the years came forward with their stories. A pattern emerged, a ruthless businessman destroying families for revenge, using children as weapons. Local businesses showed support. The cafe near the school posted a sign, "We stand with Miss Walker." The bookstore created a display of Sandra's favorite teaching books. Small gestures that built into a wave of community solidarity. Parents started a legal defense fund. Emily's husband, the IT specialist, volunteered his services to trace the source of the false allegations. Other parents with legal backgrounds offered pro bono assistance. The school's principal, initially pressured to suspend Sandra, found her courage. "I've known Sandra Walker for 4 years," she told the board. "She's the kind of teacher we desperately need. I won't be part of destroying her career over unsubstantiated claims." Former students appeared at board meetings, telling stories of Sandra's impact on their lives. "She believed in me when no one else did," a middle school student testified. "She taught me to read when everyone else had given up," said another. The tide turned dramatically when Logan's classmates took action. They organized a read-in at the school, refusing to leave their classroom after hours. "Miss Walker taught us about standing up for what's right," they told reporters. "So that's what we're doing." Their parents, moved by their children's conviction, joined them. The classroom became a symbol of resistance, with families bringing food, blankets, and support. The media coverage shifted from scandal to inspiration, a community uniting to protect one of their own. Mrs. Harper, watching this outpouring of support, made her own decision. She approached the local newspaper with documents proving Steele's manipulation of child services, his false allegations, his pattern of destroying families. "I was part of his organization," she confessed. "But watching this community defend an innocent teacher and child, it showed me there's still good in the world. The kind of good my brother died protecting." The story exploded. Other whistleblowers came forward. Steele's carefully constructed attacks began to crumble under the weight of truth and community solidarity. Local businesses offered Donald support when his investors wavered. Small shareholders publicly backed him, sharing their own experiences of his integrity. The stock price stabilized as the market recognized Steele's manipulation. Sandra's students refused to accept a substitute teacher. "We'll wait for Miss Walker," they insisted. Parents supported their stand, helping them keep up with lessons while fighting for their teacher's return. Logan watched it all with growing confidence. The community's support showed him that love wasn't just about family, it was about standing together against injustice. "See, Mom," he said to Sandra, "they all know the truth. The bad man can't win." The school board meeting that was meant to formalize Sandra's suspension turned into a celebration of her teaching. Hundreds testified to her character, her dedication, her positive impact on their children's lives. "We're not just defending a teacher," Emily Chen told the board. "We're standing up for every educator who puts children first. We're showing our kids what community really means." The board voted unanimously to reinstate Sandra pending investigation of the allegations against her. The community's cheers could be heard blocks away. Logan, watching from Donald's office with both his parents, felt the power of truth prevailing over lies. "This is what your mother died protecting," Donald told him softly. "Not just you, but the possibility of good people standing together against evil." Sandra squeezed Logan's hand. "And this is what family really means, not just the people who share your blood or your home, but everyone who chooses to stand beside you when it matters most." While the community rallied around them externally, each member of the unlikely family fought private battles within. Sandra lay awake at night, haunted by memories of Olivia's last moments in the ER. The dying woman's plea to find Matthew echoed in her dreams, mixing with guilt over keeping Logan's identity hidden for so long. "I should have known," she confessed to Donald one night after Logan was asleep. "When I found him at the children's home, wearing Matthew's necklace, some part of me must have known. Was I protecting him, or just keeping him for myself?" Donald struggled with his own demons. Every time he looked at Logan, he saw 7 years of lost moments. The birthdays, school events, simple daily rituals he'd missed while building an empire from grief. "I gave up," he admitted to Sandra. "I stopped searching, started focusing on revenge instead of hope. What kind of father does that?" Logan, sensitive to their pain, tried to shoulder burdens no child should carry. He caught Sandra crying over old hospital records and tried to comfort her. "It's okay, Mom. You found me when I needed you most." He brought Donald his artwork from school, years' worth saved in folders, trying to fill the gap of missed memories. Mrs. Harper's internal conflict grew more intense each day. Her loyalty to Steele, built over decades, warred with her growing love for this makeshift family. David's face haunted her dreams, her brother, who died protecting Logan, whose sacrifice she betrayed by serving his murderer. He was right about everything she confided to Morgan during one of their surveillance checks. David saw Steele's true nature years before any of us. I chose the wrong side, and that choice helped hurt this child. Even Morgan, the stoic investigator, found himself emotionally invested. He'd spent 7 years helping Donald search for Matthew, seeing the toll of loss on his friend. Now, watching Logan and Donald rebuild their relationship, he felt the weight of time wasted chasing false leads while the boy was so close. The pressure peaked one evening when Logan found an old video of Matthew's 3rd birthday, the day he received the silver necklace. The family gathered to watch, each face reflecting different pain. Donald seeing his complete family one last time, Sandra realizing fully what Olivia had sacrificed, Mrs. Harper recognizing David in the background, smiling and unaware of his fate. Logan watched himself opening the necklace box, his tiny face lighting up with joy. "I don't remember," he whispered, touching the same necklace around his neck now. "I don't remember any of it." The admission broke something in Donald. He left the room abruptly, and Sandra found him in his study, tears flowing freely. "I couldn't protect them," he said brokenly. "Olivia died saving him, and I wasn't even there. Now he doesn't remember her at all." Sandra sat beside him, her own tears falling. "But he's alive because of her. Because she loved him enough to give him up, to make sure he'd be safe until you found him again." Their conversation was interrupted by Logan, who'd followed them quietly. He climbed onto the sofa between them, taking each of their hands. "Don't be sad," he said simply. "We're together now. That's what matters, right?" His innocence, his ability to love them both without reservation, humbled them. Here was Olivia's final gift, a child who'd inherited her capacity for unconditional love, who could bridge the gap between past and present. Mrs. Harper watched from the doorway, seeing in this tableau everything her brother had died protecting. She made her decision then, pulling out her phone to send Steele one final message, her resignation, followed by every incriminating document she'd collected over the years. The cost would be high. She knew Steele's capacity for revenge firsthand. But watching Logan with his parents, seeing love triumph over loss, she finally understood David's choice. Some things were worth any sacrifice. As night fell over the mansion, each of them had moved closer to peace with their choices, their guilt, their shared past. They weren't perfect. They were wounded people trying to heal, to protect what mattered most, to honor the sacrifices that had brought them together. The manila envelope arrived at Donald's office unmarked, containing only a worn leather journal and a DVD labeled for Matthew Morgan's investigation. Confirmed they came from a safety deposit box rented by David Harper 7 years ago, with instructions for delivery upon certain conditions. Mrs. Harper recognized the journal immediately. "David's diary," she whispered, her hands trembling as she touched the worn cover. He wrote in it every day, especially after he started working at the church. Donald, Sandra, and Mrs. Harper gathered in the study to read it. After ensuring Logan was safely asleep upstairs, the journal's final entries painted a devastating picture of David's last days. October 15th, Mrs. Harper read aloud, her voice shaking. "Conrad is becoming dangerous. His obsession with destroying Donald Campbell has turned into something monstrous. Today he talked about using Campbell's family to hurt him. I have to warn them." The entries continued, detailing Steele's descent into vengeful madness. David had discovered his brother's plans to target Olivia and Matthew, had tried to warn them discreetly, but Steele's surveillance was too thorough. October 20th, a woman came to the church today, soaked from the rain, carrying a small boy. I recognized Mrs. Campbell from Steele's surveillance photos. She knew they were coming for her. The look in her eyes, she knew she wouldn't survive the night. Donald's hands clenched as Mrs. Harper continued reading. The boy wore a silver necklace with initials. His mother made me promise to keep him safe, to make sure Steele never found him. I'll die before I break that promise. The next entries revealed David's desperate attempts to protect Matthew while maintaining his cover as Steele's loyal brother. He'd arranged the boy's transfer to the Portland Children's Home, created false papers, erased traces of his existence. November 1st, Steele knows I helped them. He's having me followed. It doesn't matter. The boy is safe. Mrs. Campbell's sacrifice won't be in vain. I've arranged everything, the documents, the proof of Steele's crimes, all of it secured for when Matthew is found. The final entry was dated the day before David's body was found in the river. Sarah, Mrs. Harper choked on her brother's words to her. If you're reading this, I hope you've finally seen Conrad for what he is. Protect Matthew. He's innocent in all this. Sometimes the hardest choice is the right one. The DVD contains security footage from the church that rainy night. They watched in silence as Olivia rushed in with Matthew, as David promised to protect him, as mother and son shared their final moments together. He knew, Sandra said softly. David knew they would kill him for helping them, but he did it anyway. Mrs. Harper nodded, tears streaming down her face. That was David, always protecting the innocent, no matter the cost, even against his own brother. The journal's final pages contain detailed evidence of Steele's crimes, financial records, witness statements, proof of his involvement in Olivia's death. David had compiled everything they needed to bring Steele to justice, waiting for the moment Matthew would be found. Your brother was a hero, Donald told Mrs. Harper gently. He saved my son's life, and now he's given us the means to end this. He gave us more than that, Mrs. Harper replied, touching the journal. He gave us the truth. About that night, about Olivia's courage, about Steele's real nature. He knew someday Matthew would need to understand why his mother had to leave him, why she couldn't stay. Later that night, after securing the evidence in Donald's safe, Sandra found Mrs. Harper in the kitchen, making David's favorite tea. He would have loved seeing Logan grow up, the housekeeper said quietly. Seeing him safe, happy, loved. That's what he died protecting. Donald joined them, carrying the silver necklace Logan had finally taken off for bed. In the quiet kitchen, they honored David's sacrifice, the man who'd given everything to keep a promise to a desperate mother, who'd chosen right over family loyalty, whose final act had been to ensure the truth would eventually come to light. We'll tell Logan about him someday, Sandra promised. About his courage, his kindness, how he helped save him that night. David believed love was stronger than hate, Mrs. Harper said, touching the journal. That protecting an innocent child was worth any price. 7 years later, seeing Logan with you both, I finally understand what he meant. They sat together until dawn, sharing stories of David, of Olivia, of all the sacrifices that had led to this moment. Outside, the city began to wake, unaware that one man's final act of courage was about to change everything. But Steele struck at Sandra's weakest point just as David's evidence came to light. It began with an emergency call from the school board. New evidence had surfaced about the night Olivia Campbell died, suggesting Sandra had deliberately withheld medical treatment to ensure Olivia couldn't reveal Matthew's location. The accusations were devastating. Doctored medical records, manipulated witness statements, even security footage edited to show Sandra leaving Olivia's room during critical moments. Her nursing license was suspended pending investigation. The teaching board immediately revoked her credentials. You can't possibly believe this, Sandra pleaded with the principal, her voice breaking. But the damage was done. Parents who had supported her began to doubt. Whispers followed her through the school hallways. Logan noticed the change immediately. His classmates' parents pulled them away when he approached. Teachers who had defended Sandra now avoided eye contact. Even Emily Chen, their strongest supporter, hesitated when Sandra tried to explain. I need time to think, Emily said quietly. These records, they look real, Sandra. Did you really leave her there alone? The final blow came when Child Services arrived with a court order. This time there was no legal defense. The evidence against Sandra appeared overwhelming, and the judge ruled Logan should be removed from her care immediately. No, Logan screamed, clinging to her as the social workers tried to separate them. Mom, please, don't let them take me. Sandra held him desperately, her tears falling into his hair. I love you, sweetheart. Remember that. No matter what happens, I love you so much. Donald tried to intervene, but his own custody was still under review. The best he could do was ensure Logan would stay with Morgan temporarily instead of going into the system. Watching Logan being led away, his silver necklace catching the light as he looked back at her, broke something in Sandra. She collapsed in the mansion's foyer, 7 years of love and protection ending in a moment of calculated cruelty. Mrs. Harper found her there, still shaking with sobs. He planned this, the housekeeper said grimly. Steele knew David's evidence was coming. He had to discredit you before you could testify. The media descended like vultures. Headlines screamed trusted teacher revealed as killer's accomplice, and the dark truth behind a mother's death. Sandra's entire life was dissected, every decision questioned, every act of kindness recast as manipulation. She couldn't stay in Seattle. The whispers, the accusations, the empty seat in her classroom where Logan should be, it was too much. She packed a small bag, leaving everything else that reminded her of the life she'd built. "You can't give up," Donald argued when she told him she was leaving. "Logan needs you. We need you." "I'm poison right now," Sandra replied, her voice hollow. "Every minute I stay makes things worse for him. Steele won't stop until he's destroyed every chance I have of getting Logan back." The night before she left, Morgan brought Logan to say goodbye. The boy ran to her, his face streaked with tears. "Please don't go," he begged. "I'll be good, I promise. Just don't leave me." Sandra held him close, memorizing every detail, his warmth, his scent, the feel of his arms around her neck. "I'm not leaving you, sweetheart. I'm fighting for you. Sometimes love means stepping back to protect what matters most." She slipped his silver necklace into his hand. "Keep this safe for me. It's your connection to both your mother's Olivia, who saved you, and me, who loves you more than life itself." After Logan left, Sandra stood in her empty apartment one last time. The walls still held echoes of their life together: homework sessions at the kitchen table, bedtime stories on the couch, morning rushes to school. 7 years of love reduced to memories she couldn't prove were real. Mrs. Harper arrived as Sandra was leaving, bringing a small package. "David's last letter," she explained. "He wrote it the night before they killed him. Maybe it will help you remember why we can't let Steele win." Sandra opened the letter on the bus leaving Seattle, her tears falling on David's final words: "Truth is stronger than lies. Love is stronger than hate. Hold on to that when everything else falls apart." Donald Campbell stood in his empty mansion, the silence echoing with absences. Logan was with Morgan, Sandra had fled the city, and even Mrs. Harper seemed like a ghost moving through the halls. He'd lost his family twice now, first to tragedy, and now to his own failures. "I let this happen again," he told his reflection in the study window. 7 years ago he'd been in Boston when Olivia needed him. Now, he'd been too slow, too cautious in moving against Steele, and Sandra had paid the price. And the evidence against Sandra tormented him. He knew she was innocent, had seen her love for Logan, understood the depth of her sacrifice. Yet he'd failed to protect her, just as he'd failed to protect Olivia. The pattern of his failures haunted him. Morgan found him in Matthew's old room, now filled with Logan's things, a strange blend of past and present. "You're doing it again," Morgan said quietly, drowning in guilt instead of fighting back. "I destroy everything I touch," Donald replied bitterly. "My wife, my son, now Sandra. Steele was right, I don't deserve to have a family." Logan's school artwork covered one wall, bright colors and hopeful scenes. A recent drawing showed 3 figures: Mum Sandra, Dad Donald, and Logan in the middle, the silver necklace carefully detailed around his neck. Below, Logan had written, "My family." "Look at this," Morgan demanded, pointing to the drawing. "This is what Steele's trying to destroy. Not just you, this child's chance at happiness. Sandra's dedication to protecting him, the family you've all built together." The phone rang, Logan calling from Morgan's house for his nightly check-in. "Dad," his small voice carried all the confusion and pain of the past few days. "When can I come home? When is Mom coming back?" Donald's throat tightened. "Soon, buddy. We're working on it. I promise." "But you promised," before Logan's voice cracked. "You said no one would take me away from Mom. You said we'd be safe." The accusation in those words broke something in Donald. After hanging up, he stormed into his study, pulling out every file on Steele, every piece of evidence they'd gathered. "Enough," he said, his voice hard. "No more waiting, no more careful plans." Mrs. Harper found him there hours later, surrounded by papers and determination. "You're going after him," she observed. "I let Olivia face him alone," Donald replied. "I let Sandra face him alone. I won't make that mistake again. This ends now." He worked through the night, combining David's evidence with his own investigations. The pattern emerged clearly: Steele's decades of corruption, the families he'd destroyed, the lives he'd ruined in pursuit of revenge. By morning, Donald had a plan. It was dangerous, possibly suicidal, but he no longer cared about protecting himself. He thought of Sandra, forced to abandon the child she'd raised, of Logan, torn between two parents who loved him, of Olivia, making her final desperate choice to save their son. "You'll need help," Morgan said when Donald outlined his strategy. "Steele's network is vast. His influence runs deep." "Then we go deeper," Donald replied. "We use everything: David's evidence, Sandra's testimony, my resources. We bring it all into the light at once." He called Emily Chen, rallying the parent supporters who had stood by Sandra. He contacted journalists who'd investigated Steele before being silenced. He reached out to other victims of Steele's revenge, building a coalition of the wounded and angry. Mrs. Harper added her own testimony: years of witnessing Steele's crimes, of watching her brother's murder go unpunished. "David died protecting your son," she told Donald. "I won't let his sacrifice be wasted." But in quiet moments, doubt crept in. Donald would find himself in Logan's room, touching the silver necklace his son had left behind, wondering if he was making another terrible mistake. Was he risking everything again? Would his actions bring more harm to those he loved? "I don't know what to do," he admitted to Morgan late one night. "If I move against Steele, I could lose everything. If I don't, I've already lost what matters most." The answer came from an unexpected source: a video message from Sandra, sent through Morgan. "Don't let him win," she said, her face thin but determined. "Logan deserves his family, all of his family. Olivia died protecting that possibility. We can't give up now." Mrs. Harper stood in Steele's office for what she knew would be the last time, her brother's journal burning in her handbag. Steele sat behind his massive desk, looking more predator than brother, studying her with cold calculation. "Sarah," he said smoothly, "you've served me well these past 7 years. But lately, I sense your loyalty wavering. It's the boy, isn't it? He reminds you too much of David." "He's innocent," Conrad, Mrs. Harper replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Just like David was innocent. Just like all the families you've destroyed were innocent." Steele's smile vanished. "Innocent. David betrayed his own blood. He chose strangers over family. And you're walking the same dangerous path, sister." "No, Conrad. David chose right over wrong. Something you've forgotten how to do." She placed a USB drive on his desk. "This contains everything: your involvement in Olivia's death, David's murder, the false evidence against Sandra. I've already sent copies to several secure locations." Steele's face darkened with fury. "You would betray me? After everything I've done for you?" "You killed our brother," Mrs. Harper's voice cracked. "You're trying to destroy a child. There's nothing left to betray." She turned to leave, but Steele's security blocked the door. "You're not walking out of here, Sarah. Not with what you know." What happened next was chaos. Mrs. Harper had anticipated this moment, had planned for it. As Steele's men moved toward her, she pressed a button on her phone, sending pre-written messages to Donald, Morgan, and the police. But Steele had also prepared. A hidden door opened, and more men entered. Mrs. Harper found herself surrounded, her last act of defiance about to cost her everything, just as it had cost David. "You're going to disappear," Sarah Steele said coldly, "like David did. A tragic accident. So sad." "You're wrong," Mrs. Harper replied, buying time as she heard sirens approaching. "I'm nothing like David. He died protecting one child. I'm going to save them all." She pulled out her phone, streaming live to the press conference Donald had arranged. Steele's confession, his threats, everything was broadcasting to journalists and police. Steele lunged for her, but Mrs. Harper was ready. In the struggle, she managed to reach the panic button Donald had installed in her watch. The office doors burst open as Morgan's security team rushed in, followed by police. "Get the boy," Steele shouted to his men through the chaos. "Grab him now. It's our last chance." Mrs. Harper's blood ran cold. While they were here confronting Steele, his men were moving on Logan. She fought through the melee, trying to reach her phone to warn Morgan. A gunshot rang out. Mrs. Harper felt the impact, stumbled, but kept going. Her last thought was of David, of his sacrifice, of the boy who wore Matthew's necklace and carried Olivia's smile. She made it to the hallway, pressed Morgan's number with bloody fingers. "They're coming for Logan," she gasped. "Get him out. Get him to Sandra." As consciousness faded, Mrs. Harper saw David's face, felt his approval. She'd finally chosen the right side, even if it cost her everything. Just like he had. The last thing she heard was Steele's voice, full of cold rage. As he was led away in handcuffs, family means nothing without loyalty, Sarah. Nothing. But she smiled, thinking of Logan's real family, Donald who'd never stopped searching, Sandra who'd protected him with fierce love, Olivia who'd given her life to save him, and David who'd died keeping him safe. That was true loyalty. That was real family. The evidence Mrs. Harper had gathered crashed down on Steele's empire like a tidal wave. The live stream of his confession, combined with David's journal and 7 years of documented crimes, left no room for denial or legal maneuvering. News networks ran continuous coverage. Business mogul behind Campbell family tragedy, decades of corruption exposed. Steele empire built on murder and revenge. The same media outlets that had condemned Sandra now clamored to tell the true story. In the hospital, Mrs. Harper's testimony was recorded as she recovered from her wounds. Her voice weak but determined, she detailed everything: Steele's orchestration of Olivia's death, David's murder, the campaign to destroy Sandra, the attempts to kidnap Logan. "My brother David died protecting that boy," she told the prosecutors. "I watched Conrad's descent into madness for years, helped him destroy innocent families. It's time for the truth." Donald stood in the courtroom as Steele was arraigned, watching his old enemy's facade finally crack. The charges were read aloud: conspiracy to commit murder, kidnapping, fraud, witness tampering, evidence manipulation, a lifetime of crimes exposed in a single morning. "You did this," Steele snarled at Donald during a brief recess. "You turned my own sister against me, just like you turned David." "No," Donald replied calmly. "You did this. Every time you chose revenge over humanity. Every time you hurt an innocent person. Every family you destroyed led to this moment." The evidence mounted hourly. Steele's associates, seeing him fall, rushed to save themselves. They revealed hidden accounts, secret documents, years of criminal enterprises, all aimed at one goal: destroying Donald Campbell completely. Emily Chen organized a support rally outside the courthouse. Parents, teachers, and students from Riverside Elementary stood with signs: "Justice for Sandra, protect our children, truth prevails." Logan watched the coverage from Morgan's safe house, his silver necklace clutched tight. The most damning testimony came from unexpected sources families Steele had ruined over the years. They told similar stories: campaigns of destruction aimed at parents through their children, all because they had crossed Conrad Steele's path. Steele's legal team crumbled under the weight of evidence. His carefully constructed alibis fell apart as loyal employees turned state's evidence. The man who had spent decades accumulating power found himself powerless to stop his own destruction. The final blow came from medical records. Mrs. Harper had preserved proof that Steele's men had tampered with Olivia's car before the accident. The documentation was meticulous, including payments to the mechanics who'd sabotaged the brakes. "He was obsessed," Mrs. Harper testified from her hospital bed. "He wanted Donald Campbell to suffer completely. Killing Olivia wasn't enough, he needed to destroy Matthew too. He couldn't bear that David had saved the boy." The jury took only hours to reach their verdict. Steele stood impassively as guilty was read for each charge, his empire crumbling around him, his revenge plot finally ending in his own destruction. But it was the civil suits that followed that truly dismantled Steele's power. Every family he'd hurt came forward. His assets were frozen, his company seized, his wealth distributed to those he'd wronged. Donald ensured Sandra received the first settlement. "For 7 years of protecting my son," the document read. "For loving him when I couldn't. For suffering Steele's revenge in my place." Steele's final words in court were directed at Donald. "You think this is over? There will always be someone ready to destroy your precious family. Always." But looking at him now, Donald saw only a bitter old man who had sacrificed everything, including his own siblings, in pursuit of revenge. Steele had tried to destroy love and family, only to be undone by those very forces. As Steele was led away to begin his life sentence, Mrs. Harper watched from her wheelchair, David's journal in her lap. "It's over, brother," she whispered. The truth finally won. The headlines the next day read: "Steele Empire falls, justice prevails for Campbell family," but the real victory wasn't in the courtrooms or headlines. It was in the quiet moments that followed, as a family torn apart by hatred began to heal through love. They gathered in Donald's study 1 week after Steele's conviction. Donald, Sandra finally returned from her exile, Logan and Mrs. Harper in her wheelchair. The silver necklace gleamed at Logan's throat as he sat between his parents, ready to hear the full story of his past. "We think it's time you knew everything," Sandra began gently, holding Logan's hand. "About your first mother, about why she had to leave you, about how much you've always been loved." Donald opened David's journal, now a precious family record. "Your mother, Olivia, was the bravest person I've ever known," he said softly. "That night she discovered Steele's plans to hurt us. Instead of running away, she chose to save you." They showed Logan the security footage from the church, letting him see Olivia's final moments with him. His small face crumpled watching his first mother kiss him goodbye, but he didn't look away. "She loved you so much," Sandra explained, wiping his tears. "She made sure you'd be safe until we could find you again. And then David, Mrs. Harper's brother, helped protect you." Mrs. Harper wheeled closer, sharing stories of David's kindness, his determination to protect an innocent child even from his own brother. "He saw something special in you," she told Logan. "Just like your mother did. Just like we all do." Logan touched his necklace, understanding now why it had always felt so important. "Did she know?" he asked quietly. "Did my first mom know Miss Sandra would find me?" "I think she hoped someone would love you as much as she did," Donald replied. "And Sandra proved that love doesn't always come from where we expect it." Sandra held Logan close as they explained how she'd found him at the children's home, how she'd recognized something in his eyes, in the way he held onto his necklace. "I didn't know you were Matthew," then she admitted. "I just knew you needed love. And I had so much to give." They showed him photographs of Olivia pregnant with him, his first steps, the day he received his necklace. Then newer ones, his first day with Sandra, school plays, quiet moments at home. 2 chapters of love, bridged by a silver chain. "So I have 3 parents who love me?" Logan asked, looking between Donald and Sandra. "Olivia in heaven, and both of you here." "Yes, sweetheart," Sandra smiled through tears. "And we all want the same thing, for you to be happy, safe, and loved." Donald shared stories of Olivia, her laugh, her kindness, her dreams for her son. Logan listened intently, finally able to know the mother he'd lost. "She had your smile," Donald told him, "and your way of seeing the good in everyone." Mrs. Harper added her own memories of those days, helping Logan understand how many people had worked to protect him, how much love had gone into keeping him safe. "David used to say that family isn't about blood," she told him. "It's about who loves you enough to sacrifice everything to keep you safe. You've had so many people love you that way." As evening fell, Logan sat in the library window seat, processing everything he'd learned. The silver necklace caught the last rays of sunlight, no longer a mystery but a bridge between his past and present. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" Sandra asked softly, joining him with Donald. Logan looked up at them both, wisdom beyond his years in his eyes. "I'm sad about my first mom," he said honestly, "but happy too, because she made sure I'd have both of you." Donald and Sandra exchanged glances over his head, seeing in their son the best of everyone who had loved him: Olivia's courage, David's kindness, their own capacity for unconditional love. "Our family is bigger than we think," Logan added, making room for them both beside him. "It's all the people who love us, even the ones we can't see anymore." As night fell over the mansion, the truth had finally been told in full. Not as a weapon or a secret, but as a testament to love's power to heal, to connect, to create family from loss and hope from sacrifice. Spring came to Seattle, bringing renewal to more than just the gardens Olivia had once loved. The mansion, once a mausoleum of grief, buzzed with life as Sandra and Logan moved in permanently. Their small apartment's warmth somehow expanded to fill the grand spaces, transforming them from showpieces to home. The legal proceedings concluded with a poetry only life could write. Steele's conviction came exactly 7 years to the day after Olivia's death. He received multiple life sentences, one for each family he'd destroyed, with no possibility of parole. Mrs. Harper, recovered from her wounds, took on a new role. Instead of managing the house, she became its heart, sharing stories of David with Logan, teaching him to bake the cookies Olivia had loved, preserving memories while helping create new ones. Sandra's name was fully cleared. The school board not only reinstated her but created a special award in her honor, the Walker Campbell Grant for Exceptional Child Advocacy. She returned to teaching, now with a deeper understanding of what it meant to protect the innocent. "Look," Mum Logan called one morning, pointing to the garden where the first flowers were blooming. "The roses Olivia planted are coming back." Donald found them there, Sandra and Logan tending the garden together. He watched his son carefully watering the roses, wearing gardening gloves too big for his small hands, the silver necklace catching sunlight as he moved. The media attention gradually faded, replaced by quieter forms of recognition. The story became legend at Riverside Elementary, where Sandra's students now learned about courage and standing up for truth. Logan's classmates, far from shunning him, treated him with a mix of awe and protective friendship. Emily Chen helped establish a foundation in David's name, providing support to children affected by corporate corruption. Mrs. Harper served on its board, turning her brother's sacrifice into a force for positive change. The mansion itself underwent transformation. Matthew's preserved room became Logan's space, blending past and present. Photos of both his mothers, Olivia smiling from older frames, Sandra caught in recent moments, watched over his sleep. Donald's law team worked tirelessly, ensuring Steele's victims received compensation. But their most important work was establishing legal protections for children caught in corporate vendettas. The Campbell-Walker Act made using children as leverage in business disputes a federal crime. Sandra found Donald one evening in his study, looking at an old photo of Olivia. "She would be proud," she said softly. "Of Logan, of you, of everything that's come from her sacrifice." "Of you too," Donald replied. "You gave our son something I couldn't: a normal childhood, unconditional love, the courage to face truth without breaking." Logan's healing showed in small ways. He started signing his school papers Logan Matthew Campbell, embracing both his identities. He spoke freely of having 3 parents, 2 here and 1 in heaven. His nightmares decreased, replaced by dreams of gardens and family picnics. Mrs. Harper's testimony became crucial in helping other families Steele had targeted. She worked with prosecutors, turning her years of complicity into a roadmap for justice. Each case she helped resolve lifted some of the weight of guilt from her shoulders. The most powerful moment came when Logan asked to visit Olivia's grave. They went as a family: Donald, Sandra, Logan and Mrs. Harper. Logan placed roses from Olivia's garden on the stone, then stood between his parents. "Thank you," he whispered to his first mother, "for making sure I'd have all this love." He touched his necklace, then reached for Sandra's hand. "For making sure I'd have 2 moms who'd do anything to protect me." Spring continued its work of renewal. The mansion's gardens bloomed fully for the first time in 7 years. Logan's laughter echoed through halls that had known only silence. Love, once locked away in grief, flowed freely again. Summer arrived, bringing with it the kind of lazy days that create lifelong memories. The mansion's pool, unused for 7 years, sparkled with new life as Logan learned to swim, Donald and Sandra taking turns teaching him, their different styles complementing each other perfectly. "Watch," Dad Logan called, executing a cannonball that soaked both his parents. His silver necklace glinted underwater as he surfaced grinning. "Mom taught me that one." These moments of ordinary joy became their healing. Family dinners where Logan shared stories from school, Sandra discussed her students, and Donald gradually learned to leave work at the office. Harper joined them often, her stern demeanor softening into that of a doting aunt. But the relationship between Donald and Sandra deepened naturally, grown from their shared love for Logan. They found themselves staying up late after he went to bed, talking about everything and nothing. Donald discovered Sandra's quiet wit, her passion for teaching, her way of seeing beauty in small moments. Sandra came to understand Donald's dedication, his capacity for love beneath the businessman exterior. Logan watched them with quiet satisfaction. "You smile more now, Dad," he observed one evening, "and Mom laughs louder here than in our old apartment." Their first family vacation was to the beach, where Logan collected shells with the same concentration he once gave to surviving Steele's threats. Sandra taught him to build sandcastles, while Donald showed him how to body surf the waves. At night, they sat on their rental's porch, watching stars and sharing stories of Olivia. "She loved the ocean," Donald told Logan. "She said it reminded her that life was bigger than our problems." He looked at Sandra as he said this, recognizing the same wisdom in her. Back home, they established new traditions while honoring old ones. Sunday mornings meant pancakes, Sandra's slightly burnt ones that Logan preferred to Mrs. Harper's perfect ones. Family movie nights filled the mansion's home theater with laughter instead of dust. Logan's artwork covered the fridge, just as it had in their small apartment. The changes in Logan amazed them all. He grew more confident, secure in the knowledge that he was deeply loved. His nightmares disappeared entirely. The silver necklace became less a talisman of loss and more a symbol of connection to all three of his parents, to his unusual but perfect family. Donald and Sandra's romance bloomed slowly, respectfully, with Logan's happiness always at its center. Their first kiss happened naturally, during a family picnic in Olivia's garden. Logan, far from being confused, simply smiled. "Finally," he said, returning to his book. Mrs. Harper watched it all with grateful tears, seeing David's sacrifice bear fruit in this healing family. She shared more stories of their childhood, helping Logan understand how love could transform even the deepest wounds. The mansion transformed too. Sandra's books mingled with Donald's on the library shelves. Her teaching materials spread across the dining room table. Logan's toys scattered through rooms that had been museum perfect. The house became a home again, filled with the messy, beautiful reality of family life. They marked milestones together: Logan's first piano recital, Sandra's teaching award, Donald's decision to redirect his company toward helping families in crisis. Each celebration included a moment to remember those who had made it possible: Olivia, David, all those who had sacrificed for love. One evening, as they sat in the garden watching Logan practice soccer, Sandra turned to Donald. "Do you ever wonder if this is what Olivia hoped for? Not just Logan's safety, but his happiness, his ability to love so completely." Donald watched his son, seeing Olivia's smile in his joy. "I think she knew love would find him," he said softly. "She trusted that enough to let him go, just like you loved him enough to let him find his way back to me." Sandra leaned against him, their hands intertwined. "Love isn't about possession," she said. "It's about giving each other room to grow, to heal, to become whole." Logan ran over, breathless and happy, throwing himself between them. The silver necklace caught the evening light, linking past and present, loss and love, endings and beginnings. The Campbell Children's Protection Center opened its doors 1 year after Steele's conviction. Located in a bright, welcoming building near Riverside Elementary, it stood as a testament to love's victory over hatred. The center, funded by Donald and run by Sandra, provided support for children affected by corporate conflicts and family tragedies. "Welcome to our safe space," Logan proudly told visitors, giving tours in his role as unofficial junior ambassador. His silver necklace caught the light as he showed families through rooms designed for healing, play, and connection. The center's first project was the Olivia Campbell Scholarship, providing education funding for children who'd lost parents to corporate violence. Mrs. Harper established a parallel program, the David Harper Legal Fund, helping families fight back against powerful adversaries. Sandra's classroom at Riverside Elementary became a model for trauma-informed teaching. Educators from across the country visited to learn her methods for helping children through crisis while maintaining their joy in learning. Her experience with Logan had taught her that healing happened in small, everyday moments of love and understanding. Donald transformed Campbell Industries' mission, focusing on corporate responsibility and family protection. The company's legal team, once known for aggressive business tactics, now specialized in defending families against corporate abuse. They called it the Matthews Promise Initiative, ensuring no other child would suffer as Logan had. Logan thrived, growing into a boy who carried both strength and sensitivity. He kept Olivia's photo by his bed, next to recent pictures of his family. The silver necklace remained his constant companion, no longer a reminder of loss, but a symbol of the love that had saved him. "Mom," he asked Sandra one evening, "can we help other kids find their families too?" This simple question led to the center's most important program, connecting children of corporate conflicts with support networks, ensuring no child faced crisis alone. They called it David's Network, honoring the man who'd first chosen to protect a child over corporate loyalty. Mrs. Harper found her own healing through mentoring families navigating corporate threats. Her experience on both sides of power made her uniquely qualified to guide others through their darkest moments. "David showed us that one person's courage can save many lives," she often said. But the garden behind the center bloomed year-round, maintained by children learning to grow beauty from difficult soil. Logan spent hours there, teaching younger kids about the roses his first mother had loved, showing them how to nurture life even after loss. Donald and Sandra's wedding took place in that garden, with Logan proudly serving as best man. His toast brought tears to every eye. I have 3 parents who loved me enough to risk everything. 2 here, 1 in heaven, all in my heart. The center's success sparked a national movement. Similar facilities opened in other cities, each adapting the Campbell Walker model to their community's needs. The silver necklace that had once been a clue to Logan's identity became the symbol of their mission, an unbroken circle of protection and love. On quiet evenings, the family still gathered in Olivia's garden at the mansion. Logan would often sit between Donald and Sandra, secure in their love while honoring the mother who had given him his first chance at life. The silver necklace gleamed in the twilight, its initials now standing for more than just a name. They represented hope, healing, and the power of unconditional love. "Do you think they're proud of us?" Logan asked one such evening, touching his necklace. "Olivia and David." Sandra pulled him close as Donald answered, "They're proud of who you become, a boy who turns pain into healing, fear into hope, loss into love." Mrs. Harper, watching from her favorite garden bench, smiled through tears. David had been right all along. Love was stronger than hate, truth more powerful than lies, family more precious than empire. The sun set over Seattle, painting the sky in colors Olivia would have loved. In the garden she had planted, surrounded by the family she had died protecting, her legacy bloomed eternal, a love strong enough to overcome any darkness, a hope powerful enough to change the world. "This is just the beginning," Donald said softly, holding Sandra's hand as Logan picked flowers for tomorrow's center visitors. "There are so many more families to help, so much more love to share." Sandra nodded, watching their son, this miracle child who had taught them all how to heal, how to hope, how to love again. Together, she said, "We'll do it together." Dear viewers, thank you for joining us for this touching story of love, sacrifice, and redemption. We'd love to hear your thoughts and feelings about the Campbell family's journey. How did their story touch your heart? What moments moved you the most? Please take a moment to like this video if you found meaning in their story. Your support helps us continue creating content that matters. Subscribe to our channel to follow more powerful narratives that remind us of the strength of family bonds and the triumph of love over adversity. Share this video with your loved ones. Perhaps they too will find hope and inspiration in this tale. Together we can build a community that celebrates the power of unconditional love and the courage to overcome life's greatest challenges. Join our growing family by leaving your comments below. Every story shared strengthens our bonds and reminds us that we're never alone in our struggles. Best regards, the Story Team.